So Heather has played the first chapter and a lot of the second chapter of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth basically just Final Fantasy VII Remake going open world? Like, now that you've actually played it, does it work? And is it any good?
First off, it's very good. From what I've played so far, I would definitely say that fans of the original are absolutely going to love what they've done with like recreating some famous moments right from the beginning. But it's also, it feels so much bigger in terms of its scale to Remake, because obviously Remake, we were running around Midgar and we were quite confined in that space. It was still kind of fairly big adventure, but obviously now we're going out into the wider world, and it's done a really good job of recapturing the kind of magic of stepping out into that overworld in the original game for the first time. But now you're like looking out over this grassland area, which is the first open sort of zoned area that you go in. Yeah, it definitely feels bigger, but it's also doing other things that make it feel grander in scale too. It's not just in the sense of its like size and scope.
On the one hand, the map looks massive, and there's like a nice like fog of war element where it's kind of like when you first go, then you bring up the map, you can see how big it is, but you can't see there's anything there.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, to help you kind of navigate it, I've noticed that there's like a red flying bird, and there's various little like golden elements and stuff that when you get close to something to discover, they'll appear and start leading you off into areas. So there's a nice thing where it looks like you can wander, but then if there is something to discover, like they kind of like are pulling you in certain directions. So that seems to like help with that.
Yeah, there's definitely like a sense of discovery where you're free to run around and find points of interest, but all of the markers are very clear. So you can definitely find your way, which I think is good, because sometimes in, obviously this is more of an open zoney type of experience, but in open world games, it can feel quite overwhelming of like, where do I go? What do I do? Yeah. This is very like, you run around in the grasslands, you can fight enemies, but you can also find your way pretty easily as well.
Yeah. Another huge thing for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth versus Remake is they've upped the interactions with party members. I think that the bar that we've now been set with something like Baldur's Gate 3 with your companions and who you fight with is really high. Obviously, I'm not expecting them to necessarily hit those highs, but you mentioned that there is so much going on with the interaction with your party members and like upping your relationship with them and how that affects the story, the game, the combat, everything. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so they've really gone big on party bonds in Rebirth. It's like one of the main themes of the game they're kind of positioning it as. You not only have more chances to speak with them right off the bat, so you can go up and have conversation with them in calm, like in Chapter 2, pretty much very early on. They will ask you things and you have to make a decision that's timed, and your relationship will change depending on what you choose to say to them. So they could be like, I want to go here with you, or does this remind you of something? And what you say will affect your relationship with Barrett, Tifa, Aerith, Red.
And they'll bring it up later on.
Yes. So yeah, depending on, basically I decided to go somewhere with Aerith, and then the team mentioned it later on. So you can see pretty much straight away how your choices are sort of affecting the group dynamics. They absolutely know what they're doing for shippers as well. I will tease. I don't want to spoil anything, because I think the joy of discovering it for yourself should be for you to find out for yourself. But
I'm definitely taking Barrett on romantic dates.
And yeah, obviously it's not just how much you interact with them in terms of conversation and story. It's also right in the combat too. It's baked into pretty much every feature of the game. And so we go to synergy moves, which is a new feature of Rebirth.
They're kind of like cinematic limit breaks, but like tag team style. They look absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And so is it a case of if you have a better relationship with somebody, your synergy moves work better?
There's like a system that when you go around doing quests and overcoming challenges together, your party level will increase. And so instead of like leveling up individual characters, you still level up individual characters, but all of their synergy moves level up with the party level. So you can unlock new skills that two pairs can use, if that makes sense. But there's also synergy skills on top of synergy abilities. And synergy skills are tied to your block mechanic on R1.
Okay, so you can do synergy blocks
PS5
as well.
Controller. I just said PS1 controller. Ooh. So
Heather's retro. She only plays PlayStation games with PS1 controllers.
Oh my God.
The amount of compatibility issues she has is insane.
Yeah, so you hit R1 on the PS5 controller for your block, and that will bring up some specific synergy skills that each character will have. So, for example, if you're fighting with Red 13, Cloud will have synergy powers that sort of feed off of what he can do with Red. Yeah, it's obviously in episode Intermission, which was the DLC with Yuffie and Sonnen. They had synergy abilities, which is basically the same thing. So they've sort of brought that forward, and that was one of my favorite things of the DLC.
But the thing with Yuffie in Intermission was it was just the two of them. This is another level.
Yeah.
This is a whole nother level with all different characters, and we know there's going to be new characters introduced, and even people like Red 13 and stuff that like you can see that he plays very differently.
Yeah.
Especially somebody like Barrett, he's much more fluid and moving around and stuff. And so we have different weapons, we have different abilities, we have different things that you can slot, we have different items, and now we have synergies both attack and defense and different characters. It's that thing where if you're one of these people who love to go into the weeds of Final Fantasy VII, the original, and play with all the different things in the back end and really tweak everything and min-max stuff to your preferred play style, you're gonna be suited down to the ground here. How did you feel that newcomers will come to that? Because they are positioning this. Strangely, I don't really get it as a standalone game. So they're going to be targeting this to newcomers. How do you think, there seems to be a lot going on here. Do you think newcomers will be able to pick this up?
Yeah, I mean, right away from chapter 1, they tutorialize everything for you. So you're going to go straight in being told how to make use of the different powers. You'll go into combat quite early on in chapter 1 with Sephiroth, which is very exciting. And you can
what?
Yeah, so you can fight with Sephiroth and you can control him as well.
What?
They have this feature which is party leader. So you assign a character to be the party leader, and whoever is party leader is who you will control when the battle starts. But you can switch between any characters as you're fighting. And Sephiroth is one of them, so you can control him, which is really cool. And you see him fighting with Cloud in chapter 1.
There's going to be so many people that are playing it going, oh, this Sephiroth guy's quite cool. I like him. Like if they haven't played it before, and then it'd be like, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that later, but go on. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and then once you reach chapter 2, it'll also tutorialize all of the other systems like weapon upgrades, how your folios work, which is a whole other part of it, which is basically like the Rebirth version of skill trees. So each character will have a folio with their own set moves, and this is going into the synergy abilities again. Yeah.
I did notice that a couple of characters that when you meet them, they go, do you remember me? Wink, wink, wink. And there's like a yes-no answer. And it's clearly like, yes, I remember you. They'll go, okay, I won't tell you about how the combat tutorials work then, or the chocobos work.
Again, you can kind of see that with like meeting Chadley, for example, in chapter 2.
The biggest Chad ever.
Exactly. It's kind of, they've clearly done things to be like, if you've never played Remake and you don't, like, who is this kid? You're like, you have an option to be like, I don't remember you.
Refresh small, annoying
memory.
child.
Yeah. As you can help him out.
But nicely, you can be like, yes, I remember you, Chadley, go away, I don't want to do any.
Yes.
More importantly, let's go back to Sephiroth.
Yes.
You start the game playing as, is it Cloud and Sephiroth?
You're playing Cloud first. He joins the fray. He joins your party, which is very exciting, and then you can play him in combat, which is really fun. He has his sword and he has his own cool powers and skills.
And moves.
So obviously they've brought back the same systems as Remake, so you can have like the classic mode or the action mode, and you can pick whichever one you want. But yeah, it's still kind of the same systems as Remake in that sense, but Synergy sort of ups it and changes it.
So it is that thing where they have taken Remake and just made it bigger, better, faster, stronger, more complex. Like,
Yeah. I really love what they've done with bonds above everything else, because you really get the sense that this is a unified party that are overcoming things together, and they're really growing their relationships because of the fact that they're going through so much together. And I think that's such a big part of what makes Final Fantasy VII so great.
Oh, it would be really unfortunate if you built all those bonds up and then something happened. Anyway,
who can say?
Oh yeah, who knows where this story can go?
You can see again why they've kind of done it for that reason too. Teasing, probably.
Just to wrench your heart out even more. Like, I don't know if I like it, because I'm just like, I know where this is going. Don't make me cry again.
I'm very curious to see how much it will make certain moments affects you more potentially, but we'll have to wait and see, because we don't know.
I'm probably gonna do the Bambi thing in Friends, and just before it gets to that point, be like, Anna, finish the game.
I'm done.
Finished.
Ignorance is bliss.
Precisely. Yeah. So it is coming out very soon, exclusively for the PS5 on the 29th of February. There is an exclusivity window where it is coming to PC later in the year, but initially, if you want to get your hands on this and if you want to play it, you've basically only got the PS5 to play it on, which is unfortunate, but they're more available now. Just to summarise, it's good.
It's fantastic. I really think if you're a fan of the original game, you're going to get such a kick out of some of the things that they've done right from the beginning. And it just makes me all the more excited to see some of the moments that I remember playing as a kid on the original version. But even if you're completely new to Final Fantasy, or you started at Remake, Rebirth's a fantastic continuation, or maybe a starting point, but I still say play Remake.
Anyway, very excited. Rebirth out the end of February, and we'll look forward to the review.
Promise not to tell? When she wakes up, a scary man is gonna kill her.